Gold Paladin is best known with a reference to the sun, but a sun can also burn more brighter with a bluish flame. This is the return of the Bluish Flame Liberators.
Stand up! Vanguard!
Hey Cardfighters, welcome back to another extra Cardfight update, and today we've got two new cards for Gold Paladin, which I already teased in a previous Cardfight update, as we already knew that we would get the return of Agloville and Percival, and both of them are 2D archetypes of Liberators, and most notably the Bluish Flame Liberators. Before we go into the card reviews and the skills themselves, I need to give a heads up so you guys understand why I'm not going to refer to older cards or their skills. I am not that knowledgeable with the old Bluish Flame Liberator cards. I've never played with the archetype, and I wasn't even around during the Legion era, so I might not look at the premium aspect of these cards, and I will mainly focus on the standard applications of what these cards can do and what they can do in general. And for anybody that's interested in the Liberator aspect or the premium aspect, they probably already know what that archetype can do and how these skills might interact with that archetype specifically. So with that disclaimer out of the way, let's dive straight into these new cards, as they are pretty spicy for unexpected reasons. So first off, we're going to take a look at the grade 2 of this pair, and surprisingly this is the higher rarity version, as this is a triple R grade 2 that is of course of Liberator Agloville, and Agloville's abilities are Auto and Vanguard Circle. When placed, cost Counterblast 1, look at the 3 cards from the top of your deck, call up to 1 card from among them to the rearguard circle, and put the rest on the bottom of your deck in any order. So this is just a generic check top 3 to call something to the field. Interesting enough, this skill is identical to the original skill, only the original one has this as a rearguard skill instead of a vanguard skill. Now, talking about that aspect of the older card, this was a Legion mate of a Legion pair. Now, if this interaction, if I have it correct with the interaction, this is actually a upgrade to the original one in a Legion setting, because if you Legion with this card, you can activate its Vanguard skill. So actually you get more value off of Legioning with this Legion mate than which you would do with the original counterpart. So that's an interesting dynamic, but in standard case, this is an alright skill. It's not that amazing since it's only a Vanguard skill. So if you go beyond the grade 2 turn, this skill that basically does nothing. But it's a nice bonus if you can ride up to this card and get this potential +1 out of it to have a little bit more aggro in the early game, which is always nice for Gold Paladin. Now the actual playability of this card comes to its second ability, which is a rearguard skill, as it is Auto and Rearguard Circle. When it attacks, cost, put another rearguard into your soul, and this unit gets power plus 10k until the end of the battle. At the end of the battle, return this unit to your hand. So this sucks something into your soul to give itself 10k power, then return it to your hand, where it is safe against your opponent's field control or some kind of interactions with your field, so you can protect this particular unit. So it's a nice 19k unit onto the field, or 24 on an Axel 2 marker, which means it can hit over defensive triggers even against floors, which is always nice, especially for Gold Paladin, as that is a clan that tends to have issues hitting over magic numbers with its rearguards, as they don't tend to be of the higher caliber. On the surface level, this is basically where this card fulfills its purpose. It's just a good beat stick that can protect itself. Now, but there are more applications to this card than meets the eye, as its cost to put another card into the soul actually can set you up for certain things. The most obvious part is that it fills your soul, so you can use your soul blasting skills more often, and as seen as Gold Paladin has a lot of skills that use its soul, this is actually quite nice. But it also has some other applications, and more precisely with the Azel engine, or just any card that needs specific grade 3s in the soul, or a certain amount of grade 3s in the soul, to get more value out of those cards. Good example, of course, is Blonde SL with Ravenhair. To get Ravenhair's full capability, you want to have a Blonde SL into your soul. But if you for some reason have a Ravenhair, you need to ride it, and then somewhere down the line you manage to call a Blonde SL to the field, you cannot use Ravenhair to its max capacity. Now with Agloville, you could actually mid-battle shove that blunt SL into the soul, and then once you attack with your finger, it actually still activates Ravenhair's ability as that blunt SL is now in the soul. This also can set up your Platinum SL faster, as you can just shove in more Great Freeze at a more rapid pace than you would by just normal riding if you do not have access to the entire SL engine. So there are more applications to this card than just meet the eye. But there's one more interesting take to this card, but I will go over that after we take a look at the Great Free counterpart, because these two cards work nicely together as an engine in a very particular interesting deck that's probably one of my favorite Gold Paladin decks till this day, at least in standard, but more to that later in this video. Now, with the teaser out of the way, let's take a look at the Great Free counterpart, which, interesting enough, is a double R. So the Great 2 is a triple R, the Great Free is a double R, as here we have Bluish Flame, Liberator, Percival. And Percival has the following abilities: continues a Vanguard circle, all of your units in an additional rearguard circle gets power plus 5k. So basically your XL2 markers become an XL1 marker that still draws you a card, and XL1 markers becomes XL1++ as they give units plus 15k power. Is it going to be enough to still choose for XL1? I'm not so sure, but it's something to think about because it's actually quite a lot of power. But its main application lies in its second ability, as you might not always want to use this as a Vanguard unit and more of as a backup unit thanks to this secondary skill. As the second ability is auto on Vanguard and rearguard circle. When placed, if you have a Great Free or greater Vanguard, cost Counterblast 1 and discard a card from your hand. You get an imaginary gift XL, search your deck or drop zone for up to one Oath Liberator Eklovel, go to the rearguard circle, and if you search your deck, shuffle your deck. This ability may only be used by a card with the same card name once per turn, so it has the hard once per turn restriction. Now, to summarize this skill: unplace, counterblast 1, discard a card, gain an XL circle, and search out an Eklovel from your drop or deck. In most cases, it's going to be an XL2 marker, so you get that additional draw off. So first you draw and then you search for Eklovel. If you take that draw in consideration, this skill is basically Counterblast 1, create an XL Circle 2 for 5k power, and search out an Eklovel and add it to your hand. For one Counterblast, that's a lot of value. Yes, you need to first discard a card up front, but you will draw it back with an XL2 marker if you play XL2. That is really good if this is your supporting Great Free, because you can just ride up to your Great Free, get an XL Circle, then call this thing, get another XL Circle, and be very aggressive. With something like Platina SL or just Ravenhair XL, that can be very deadly, but this can also be really interesting with your Strides and Premium that can just fill out your front row very effectively, or can give power buffs to all your units, so having a bigger field as soon as possible can give you more bang for your buck. But you also have Aggravane, which is a very rush down strategy, and having that extra XL Circle on your first Great Free turn can give you a lot of value, as you want to have more units on the field and also more room to get more calls off, so you can get, again, more superior calls of Aggravane. So this extra circle you generate with Percival is just pure value for Gold Paladin in all kinds of scenarios. So this is a very strong card for any engine. And as you can see, it can search out the Grade 2, so it's a nice 2-card combo engine that you can just splash in any deck that has room for a Grade 2 and a Grade 3. Now, if you take these two cards together, the Grade 3 Percival basically states for one Counterblast, you not only generate an extra circle onto the field that can give a unit passive 5k power, you search out the Grade 2, so you get that plus to your hand for that Counterblast. But that Grade 2 is a 19k attacker just generically without the additional circle power from the XL markers or any other power that you can get from any unit on the field. And that Grade 2 can give you soul on demand or can shove a unit into the field and it keeps itself safe from harm. That is a very interesting engine that is probably very strong in whatever strategy you might come up with. But let's take a look at that thing that I was hinting before. I already said the name of the strategy in this video not long ago, as these cards are immensely powerful with Aggravane. And you might think to yourself, how are these cards good with Aggravane? Well, Aggravane, as I already explained with Percival, wants to be very aggressive. You want to roll out as much of attacks as fast as possible so you can put your opponent to 5 damage and then make them faltered through all your multi-attacks as they cannot rely on defensive triggers. So having that extra XL Circle a turn earlier can be very big, and especially in the later turns, if you cannot rewrite Agravain but you can use a Percival, then that's also another way to get more Axle Circles throughout the match. So this is already a very good synergy between these cards. But Percival has another application for the Agravain engine, and it all has to do with Agloville. Agloville as a grade 2 is insanely good for the Agravain engine, as that card not only can shove cards into the soul, so it could potentially build up to your Soul Blast 12 skill, but that's not the main selling point here. The selling point here is that Agloville can bounce itself back to your hand, meaning you will always have access to that one specific call that builds on the calls that you want with Agravain. Because the whole thing with the Agravain engine is that you want to call as many cards in the main phase, so once you attack with Agravain, you can superior call like from the top 10 cards or something from your deck, so you can build a perfect second wave of attacks. Now, with a card that can keep bouncing itself back to your hand, you always have more calls next turn. And the cost of shoving units into your soul is perfect for Agravain, because you would stuff them into the soul anyways with Agravain's its own skill. And as seen as Agravain just counts the cards that you called onto the field and not the amount of cards going into the soul, this is perfect, as you will lose nothing from that skill. You get a free 10k power and you get that free unit back to your hand, and you can then replace that next turn so you can load up your Agravain effect. And thanks to the fact that Percival can search out those Agravains even from your drop stones, means you will always have access to those specific cards. And it having the potential Vanguard Circle skill is a nice added bonus on top of that, as that means you could potentially be a bit more aggressive on your grade 2 turn before you go into your big plays with Agravain. So incidentally, these cards are amazing Agravain support cards in my eyes, but just in the service in general, these are really, really good generic cards that could be used as a 2-card combo engine in any type of strategy, thanks to the fact that you have a good soul charge engine, a good way to cheat out more Axle Circles, and a way to cheat out powerful cards, and also filter your deck as you specifically search out this grade 2, which is always really nice, as that increases the chance of hitting triggers. And with having that extra mark onto the field and probably running fronts, you will get even more value off of those triggers. And that sums up everything about these particular cards. These are really interesting revisions of the old Legion pair for Gold Paladin, the Bluish Flames cards, and I honestly cannot wait till we get these cards in the English format, as I personally am a big fan of Agravain. I have the deck itself. It's one of my favorite decks to play right now, and I'm looking forward to potentially more reveals to upgrade that deck, as there's a lot of room to improve here, and Percival and Agloville are definitely the steps into the right direction for this deck and for Gold Paladin in general. So who knows or what's gonna happen once we get Gurgit. But with that said, let me know in the comments down below what you guys think of these new Bluish Flame revisions of the old Legion pair for Standard. I personally am very happy, but I want to know what your guys' opinion are. Did I overlook a certain interaction, or do you think it's actually better in a different playstyle or a different deck? And of course, in a premium landscape, as there's probably a lot more options there available to you, as they have really powerful strides that could potentially synergize with these added engine additions that now could benefit Gold Paladin as a whole. But that said, I want to give a huge shout out to my Patreon supporters over at patreon.com/VanguardInsider. You guys make everything on this channel possible, so you guys are amazing. If you do want to support the channel or everything that's happening on the channel, you can simply go to patreon.com/VanguardInsider and become a patron today. But with that said, I'm Mr. Time Leap, and I see you guys in the next one.